The honourable member, I'll just interrupt for a second. Apparently, we're not getting translation.
Welcome to Heard with Trevor.
From French to English, can you hear me
Appreciate
now?
you joining me,
English?
friends. And
Yes, okay.
let's get start the first
Please start over.
question period banter here.
Merci.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to welcome members of the Canadian Association of
Just gonna
Fire
keep this,
Chiefs who are here as part of
right
their
till we
annual
actually
Fire
get
Chiefs
into
on the Hill
question period
Days.
itself here. We're starting with
Over the coming days, many of us will have the
statements by
opportunity
members,
to have conversations with the fire chiefs who are here on the Hill
shorter
to discuss the
version
main
of question
issues that
period
fire
than we've
services
had
are facing across the
traditionally in the
country.
past.
They understand,
used to be
among
as
others, that
long
there are
as an hour and
challenges
15
with recruitment and
minutes.
retention of
At this
firefighters,
point in
given
time,
the increasing
the
number of
NDP
tragedies
Alliance has
that we're seeing around the country. And we'll also
to,
discuss an issue I take to heart, the question of
fix the
cancer
question
in
period
firefighters.
plus statements
other
by
stakeholders
members
from my
is
private
now 1
members Bill
hour.
C-224,
We get about
an act to
28
establish
minutes,
a national
21
framework
minutes
for the
now
prevention and treatment of cancers
into
linked to
statements by
firefighting,
members,
which, as you know,
and,
Mr. Speaker, was referred to the
we
Health
have a little
Committee
less
last
than
June.
40 minutes
It's my hope that all
get
members
on
will work
with
together to ensure
the
this legislation is passed soon
question
and send a
period.
clear message to our firefighters that their health and safety is a top priority for all of us.
Right on.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, our thoughts are with the victims of the tragedy of the École Polytechnique, women who lost their lives simply because they were women. We remember their lives and the tragedy that this represented for their families. And we commit to ensuring that this will never happen again. Will the government please share its thoughts on this matter? Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Sport. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Leader of the Opposition for his question. Obviously, all of us here today send our thoughts to the families of the victims, the 14 women who were murdered during the École Polytechnique tragedy. The government wants to do more to protect women, and that's why we have this very important bill to limit assault rifles. And so we invite all parliamentarians to work with us to strengthen this bill and better protect women.
Crime.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Especially with your lower crime bills.
The Auditor General
Steve Pascal starting for the Liberals.
pointed to horrific waste. According to her, the government wasted at least $4.6 billion and another $27 billion, which she said were suspicious overpayments and should be investigated. There are 1,500 ineligible recipients. So why did the government waste money and create inflation on the backs of Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government acted quickly to help Canadians during the pandemic, and we made the right choices. We would like to thank the Auditor General for her report and for her hard work, and we'd like to thank her for confirming that our COVID-19 benefits were targeted and effective. It is clearly indicated in the report that those benefits helped the economy get back on its feet, and Canadians know that we protected them, and we will continue to do that, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
A lot more money.
Is now exposed for having wasted massive sums over the last several years. According to the Auditor General, there is $4 billion of known waste, another $27 billion of suspected waste. There is $60 million of spending that's under criminal investigation. There were 190,000 people who quit their jobs and therefore were not eligible to receive the CERB benefit, but did anyway. They even sent the CERB to 1,500 prisoners, Mr. Speaker. Why did the government waste so much and make Canadians pay the price?
It did cost us a lot of money because spending things,
The Auditor General found
we had
very
no idea
clearly
where
that
it even
CERB
went.
and our individual benefits achieve their intended goals of getting money to Canadians quickly, of allowing Canadians to stay home safely, and avoiding severe social and economic consequences. We as a parliament
There was
approved
also
an
a lot of
attestation-based
fraud in the
approach.
CERB
We knew from
file.
the beginning there would be post-payment verification. We are working methodically through that, Mr. Speaker, and I can assure all Canadians that we are on top of this.
The Honourable Leader of the
See that
Opposition.
in
Well, we already
2024.
knew that the government paid billions of dollars in wage subsidies to profitable corporations that were able to pay out dividends to their wealthy executives. Now we know they also paid $15 billion to companies that did not have a significant revenue drop. And so they were able to pocket the cash at the expense of the Canadian people.
Because they're
This is the
pork
same
into
government that gave
liberal
money
ridings
to
and liberal
Loblaws,
corporations.
to other wealthy corporations, always at the expense of the working class. Why do they always take from the have-nots and give to the have-yachts?
L'Honorable
Conservatives
Ministre.
do
The
that,
Honourable
Pierre.
Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government made decisions that undoubtedly saved lives and the economy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our agency has been working for months to check the eligibility of recipients, and the Auditor General concluded, what she concluded was in compliance is what the report said. The recovery will take years, and while the Conservatives are stuck with bad cryptocurrency advice from their leader, we are helping Canadians.
Yeah, bad crypto advice,
Yes,
like what?
but they're delivering
FTX
for
crypto, the
prisoners.
Liberal
The
Democrat
government gave
scheme?
CERB to 1,500 prisoners who were in prison after having committed crimes, so they clearly weren't eligible. 190,000 people received CERB who had left their jobs on purpose, and who therefore were not eligible. We're talking about $30 billion of wasted money. And we know that there are criminal investigations underway. Will the government finally investigate to recover the money that was lost on the backs of Canadians? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, in an article by the CBC, the member for Edmonton West said that recovery is a process that can take many years. So here's my question, Mr. Speaker. Does his own leader agree with that member?
Honourable.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, this day, December 6th, marks the commemoration of the horrific femicide committed at École Polytechnique. This compassion should guide all of our work, especially with regard to gun control. The government tabled a very complex amendment to the point that the Prime Minister and the Minister say that it's an issue that needs to be dealt with by experts. Very quickly but rigorously, does the government agree to add 2 committee meetings so that experts can analyze this bill? Thank you.
No,
The Honourable
they
Minister.
won't. This is the Liberals.
Mr. Speaker, we would like to thank the Bloc Québécois for their cooperation, and also the NDP, also their reasonable and responsible approach to working in concert to strengthen this bill in committee. It's very important that everyone work together on this file. It was mentioned today we've commemorated Polytechnique, and so we want to remove assault rifles from our streets and protect the rights of hunters and Indigenous people. We're working on that. The Prime Minister is committed to that, and I urge everyone to work together on this. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Yes, that is the spirit of the question I've been asking. Obviously, I share the concern that recreational hunters might be the object of petty politics, but we're talking about a sense of security for civil society and the families of these victims. Clarity should be at the heart of this issue, and we are asking for 2 extra committee meetings with experts in order to analyze the amendment. Can that be done, please, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Our government is determined to work with all parliamentarians, with the Bloc, with the NDP, to ensure that this bill
To make sure that we'll do
strikes the right
liberal-only
balance and achieves
bills.
the objectives that we set, that is to eliminate weapons, for example, that were used to kill people at Polytechnic and the Quebec Mosque, while protecting the rights of hunters and Indigenous people.
That's great,
The
but
Honourable
you're
Member for
actually
Burnaby
taking
South.
some hunting
Had
rifles
to be
again.
called into long-term care homes in this country. And now the Red Cross has been called into children's hospitals in Ottawa. It is clear that our healthcare system is in crisis, but the Prime Minister's been missing in action. Leadership isn't looking for
And you want dental
excuses,
care,
it's showing
federal
up
things,
and
and
finding
helping the
solutions.
provinces.
So when will the Prime Minister show leadership, step up and declare or call for an emergency meeting of the First Ministers and solve the crisis in our healthcare system?
Yeah, I can absolutely
The
agree.
Honourable
Thank
Parliamentary
you.
Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you very much,
What are you
Mr.
actually gonna
Speaker,
do,
and
though?
I agree with the honourable member. Urgent actions are indeed required to address the current health workforce crisis, and that's why we have taken significant steps forward by establishing a coalition for action
Reading
for
from the
healthcare
script.
workers to inform immediate and long-term solutions to address these challenges, introducing measures to facilitate the entry of foreign national physicians and permanent residents, as well as
Wasn't actually
announcing a
concerned.
national nursing
Didn't
officer
want to know the actual
to
answer.
provide strategic advice from a nursing perspective.
Here's my
Our
script.
government's priority remains to work together for better outcomes for Canadians, and that includes the youngest patients in our hospitals. So I appreciate the attention to this very important matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good job.
Member for Burnaby South.
Les médecins.
Physicians, nurses, healthcare workers are sharing horrific stories about what is happening right now in our healthcare system. We are in the midst of a crisis, Mr. Speaker, and it's clear children are getting sick and they have no access to healthcare.
That's what we've warned you about for like 2 years, Shagmeat.
This Prime
Like,
Minister...
I'm just going to stop this here because this gets frustrating for me when we've had infectious disease experts warning us for literally 2 years about the consequences of the mass vaccination rollout. I'm probably going to get this whole live stream's probably going to get torn down. Who cares, really? This isn't the first channel I've had other channels suspended just for speaking the truth, right? This was exactly what doctors and infectious disease experts warned for 2 years was going to happen with the max vaccination rollouts the way that they were. They warned that there was going to be respiratory problems with children.
is not showing leadership. When is he going to show leadership and do what needs to be
Would you
done
even
to
know,
save
Jack?
our healthcare system? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Leader of the NDP for his very important question. We obviously share his concerns with regard to the difficulties our healthcare system is going through in Canada. He talked about difficulties in children's hospitals and the important issue of a shortage of healthcare professionals. That is exactly what we are discussing with healthcare ministers and provincial premiers. We are encouraged by those discussions. We're going to increase federal resources in order to ensure that this matter is resolved.
Today, the Auditor General released a damning report confirming that Liberal mismanagement led to at least $32 billion in inflationary spending. More costs, no control. Their lack of transparency contributed to the affordability crisis. The Auditor General is deeply concerned by the lack of controls, and her report shows Liberals are only going to keep their failed approach for current and future programs. Why are Canadians continuously on the hook for Liberal failures?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
The overspending kills us.
The Auditor General found that we achieved the goals we set out to do. We kept Canadians safe, we made sure Canadians were paid quickly, and we averted significant social and economic hardship for our country. Mr. Speaker,
almost 200,000
this Parliament approved an
cases.
attestation-based approach. We knew when we committed, we were very transparent from the beginning, we would do post-payment verification. We're methodically going through that, and we'll continue to do so, working
So what are you
individually
going
with
to do?
Canadians
Claw
to make
back,
sure a fair
from people with
and
disabilities?
equitable response to this.
Disability minister.
Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Well, if the Liberals' goals were to lack transparency, lack accountability, and lack control, the Auditor General confirmed that in her report today. Their legacy of mismanagement has made life more unaffordable, sending more Canadians to food banks than ever before. Record high food, rent, and mortgage costs are driven up by the Liberals' inflation. The more Liberals fail, the more Canadians have to pay. How many more Liberal failures are Canadians on the hook for?
The Honourable Minister of
We
Family.
let the Conservatives talk about all the reasons of inflation.
Speaker, we took important action when we understood that the high cost of living was having an impact on Canadians. And in fact, yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the Financial Post noted that our childcare policy has been a success. They said government policy has played a role in getting women back in the workforce, especially when it comes to childcare. Women feel confident going back into the workforce because they won't be spending their whole paycheck on childcare. Mr. Speaker, we are there for Canadians and we are delivering.
Where's the $10 a day? You're 2 years late. And
The
it's
government will blame
only half.
everyone else for their inflationary spending, but when the Auditor General confirms that a minimum of $32 billion in COVID overpayments and suspicious payments need more investigation, there is little argument that this mess added to inflation. The Auditor General has sounded the alarm bells on the lack of control on COVID spending. So lots of checks and no balances. And the government is continuing the same approach with current legislation, current programming. So I have one question. How can Canadians trust them?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I will get to the honourable member's question in a moment. I want to add my voice
but you
to
won't
those
answer
started
directly.
by the Minister of Women and Gender Equality in this House today on the 33rd anniversary of École Polytechnique. I was a 19-year-old student at the U of A when word got to us about 14 women gunned down at École Polytechnique. And it became worse when we realized that this was motivated by hate and misogyny. We must do everything in this House to protect women and to end violence against women. And on the substantive question that the honourable colleague asked, millions of mothers who received CERB benefits did not cause inflation, and neither did the benefits.
No, they didn't.
Neither did the businesses.
$32 billion in fraud payments. That's what causes inflation. He didn't answer.
We're not talking about those cases. Canadians deserve transparency about the $32 billion that the Auditor General says is just the tip of the iceberg of people who got money and it needs to be investigated. So Canadians deserve to know that there was no control when the money was going out, and now they learn that there's no control or accountability for taxpayers to get that money back. So when food bank use is at its highest rate and 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals, I'll ask again, how do Canadians trust them?
Mr. Speaker, the CRA does not agree with the Auditor General's calculation with regard to ineligible recipients to the wage subsidies. The CRA's calculations indicate that the people were highly compliant and that the Auditor General's figures were exaggerated. It's not her fault because we all know that she was pressed by the opposition to produce this report. Political gains must not
does not mean there's any
lead us to
political
forget
gains.
that the wage
Not in any
subsidy
means.
saved the economy and many people. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, according to a new
And I've already got.
grocery costs are going to continue to rise in 2023. So annual spending for the average family
I'm still on Twitter. I've been booted off of
$300, which is an
already.
enormous share of the family budget.
I knew it.
Parents are
I
already
made
incapable of feeding their families, and now it's going to get worse.
12
For
seconds
Canadians,
worth of comments
these price
about the corporate
hikes
jobs.
are unaffordable. Can
and
you believe it? In Canada,
YouTube
people can't afford to put
cut
food
me
on their
off.
table or heat their homes. Will the Liberals pledge to stop their inflationary spending so that Canadians can afford to eat?
Actually
The
end the
Honourable
stream.
Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The difference between us and the Conservatives is that on this side of the House, we trust Canadians. We understand what Canadians need, and we're going to help them out either by giving them dental benefits or with daycare assistance. We trust Canadians, and we're going to be there to support them today and in future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. I can't believe that the member across the way gave us that kind of answer when we know that they're the ones who have lost control of public spending. The Auditor General confirmed that the government
Twitter's not much in anymore anyway, so
$2 billion to
let's just call it a day.